Testing, testing, testing. Testing one, two, three. So hopefully the sound is okay now with this system. We got it working. Let me know if you hear this. If everything is sounding okay. Are the levels all right? Should the levels be higher? Should the levels be lower? Ugh. This is so much more difficult than I ever expected to get everything just to work all the time. And once you get it working, you'd think, okay, well now I've got it. It's never that simple. Okay, so stream is started. 3 viewers. I'll take that as the beginning of good things to come. How have you been? I've been setting up all this equipment, and it's so much weirder than I ever expected. Welcome to another Andreas tab reading show, where I'm gonna read a bunch of tabs that I have because I have a whole bunch more this time. I didn't finish before. Now I'm thinking what I want to do. Yo, what's up, Juan? John Juan. Do I sound volume needs to be up? Okay. Well, what have I done? 1 second. Up, up. Gain, maybe gain. How about that? Anything from there? Is that helping at all? Is the level changing? How about this? Is this more better? Trying to fix that volume situation. How low is it? Is it like super duper low? Let me check this out. Advanced audio properties. Gain. Is this better? That's better? Okay. All right, that's a little bit better. Okay. See, these are why we do these things. It's all about the test. If it should be louder than this, or is better perfect, or good? Good. Okay. That's what I need to know. Is it still low? It's still low, someone else says. I'm going to wait a second to tell me. Still low. Okay. I think, so this is something weird. It doesn't let me adjust the audio levels normal ways. Okay, properties. It was still better, but still needs to go up. Okay, how about this? How about this? How about that? Is that any louder? Did that change it at all? I'm not even convinced that anything's changed at all. Settings, audio, super fast monitoring device. Yes is such a, I don't know what yes means in relation to which question that we were just saying. Maybe general. So I'm going to assume this is loud enough, but I don't think it is because I can tell that this level looks low. That's very interesting to me. Okay, how about this? Wake, whoa. Let's relax. How about that? I can hear that's out of control. Don't want that. You know what I could do? Could do some of my own tests. Test. Whoa, that's brutal loud in the headphones. Oh my lord. I'm gonna go deaf. Okay. Go up just a little still. I think that OBS has some sort of a problem. Like it's not letting me adjust the audio levels properly. Let me go to the sound driver and check that out. This is fun. This is exactly what you expected I was going to be doing today. Trying to fix freaking sound levels. Okay. Well, my volume is on half. It's good when you speak, mate. Okay. Well, guys, just let me know if it's okay. If it's really not okay, then by next time it'll be better. Yeah, okay, so bring the mic really close at least. I have to be like up in the microphone. That's going to be nuts. I mean, I honestly think that it's OBS cuz OBS is doing something where it's auto leveling the audio. That's the only thing that makes sense to me why this would be happening. Volume properties, gain, advanced audio properties. How about that? Is there like a gain live track? There we go. Okay, now we're talking. Turning it up a few decibels. Hello. There we go. Just up to like 9 more decibels probably. Did that affect it? I don't know. How about that? Is this louder? Yeah, you guys have to put your volumes all the way up, I guess. I'm sorry. Next time it'll be better. But make sure just let me know that the audio is at least okay for people that have phones and things like that, because otherwise it's a waste of time. Okay, so glad that it works. Now we're getting somewhere. OBS, I tried Streamlabs again just to see if it was any better, and it had the same problems that OBS had. So all it really does is make it slightly more convenient by having like a "we're about to stream" thing. So I might use some Streamlabs stuff, even though everybody hates their company because they steal free software and they sell it. You know. Theoretically, that's the most evil thing you could do. But what do I know? Okay. Let me go to I have a bunch of new slides to read. So I'm going to open those up and go back here. And yeah, please share these because I'm going to start doing these every day. And the other thing is, I did the last couple, they were like 3 hours each. I'm not going to do that all the time. I'm going to try to force myself to do like an hour. And then pretty soon I'm going to try to do like 20-minute spots in the morning and stuff. Like normal people can watch. Or maybe not normal people, but just make it more convenient to watch my videos. Because if they're 3 hours long, you're like, oh, great. Now I have to watch a 3-hour video. Maybe not everyone's into that, so I get that. So I'm going to force myself also so I can do other things with my time. To do like an hour with an alarm. And when the alarm goes off, I'm going to see how many I can get through in an hour. Now, I'm not starting that hour quite this second because I'm just telling you guys what's going on. But at least now you know. So let me go down here, set this up, get ready to go. Everybody ready to begin this absurd plan of mine? Let's see, video capture device. Fix that. Built-in display. No, not that one. Hey, $5. Thank you very much. What's it say? It says, reading a book. I have to go to like the normal. For some reason, the OBS box is just. It could be better. It could be more easier to read. Wait. Come on, OBS. No. Oh, there we go. Read a book that alluded Tyr as the. Reading a book that alluded Tyr as the center for Phoenician culture. Have you heard of this anywhere? Totally. Off the top of my head, Euclid comes up, right? Euclid of Tyr, because so much of the Greek math, and when people talk about the greatest Greeks, they're really talking about Tyrians from Turan and from Phoenicia. And you wouldn't call it at the time Phoenicia. Sounds like Turan's closer. But Tatar would have also been like the fatherland or whatever. So Tyr is where Euclid's math comes from. Arguably Archimedes follows in that same tradition. So Tyr is the center of everything. Aleppo is great. Dang it, the volume. This is horrible. You're going to have to turn up the volume as much as possible. Why? Why is this like this? Very strange indeed. Well... I'm going to keep trying with the volume thing, guys, because I do care. I really do care. Settings. If anybody's an OBS expert, I could use your help, clearly. I'm trying to get everything to work properly, and these are the little things that come at me. Decay rate, sample peak, meter, true peak, high CPU usage, monitoring device. This doesn't make sense why things are quieter. Video, stream... well, you know what? Let's find out together, I guess. Now we're doing that. So, going to video capture device, and it should be properties. This is a lot of fun, right? This is a lot of fun. Is this the wrong video capture device? Why is life so hard? Okay. Properties. Built-in display. No. Window. There we go. To this guy? No. Is that wrong again? This drives me crazy. I think it's this one. Panda. We'll go with that. Panda, right? You guys see that? Zosimos of Panopolis? Okay. Now, just really quickly, I was going to look up OBS auto level audio, because that might be the problem. Automatic audio levels. Okay. Is it possible? Yes. Add an audio filter compressor and use sidechains ducking source setting. Be careful that it works the other way around. You think it works? It may work the other way around. Okay. And it brings down the levels or something like that. Okay. So properties, scale filters. Properties, Zoom audio driver, settings. Yeah, let's see, audio settings. Here's my Zoom audio driver. Decay rate, monitoring device. Yeah, you got me, man. You got me. I don't understand. And you can see this, right? Can you see my levels, or is it not even? It just blocks it out for you, not even to see, isn't it? Irony. Filters, no filters. I don't know. I think I just need to be like right up in the microphone for now, and hopefully that's better, because that's all I got right now is like right up in the microphone. Seems to work at all. So I'll keep the microphone right next to my face until I can figure out how to keep the levels perfect. And then I'll look at the chat window too. This is just, they've made life more and more complicated, you know, for no reason. And this chat window just likes to bounce around. OBS, man, like, you wonder why people pay for Streamlabs. You're horrible software sometimes. Like, let's be real. It's chopping off like a third of the screen. Interesting. Okay, see, this is all great stuff to learn about. Let me see. When you say a third of the screen, you meant like in this part? Like the Zosim, this part's cut off, but my video's okay, or what? I can't be sure what I'm hearing there. These are all important things to learn. Properties, built-in Reddit. Okay, so it also needs to be resized probably. So transform scale, isn't there like a scale thing or something like that? Fit to screen. Boom. How you like them apples? How about that? Is everything fixed now? You can see the whole window, I assume, now. Let me also see. Yeah, that looks right, doesn't it? Yeah, it doesn't show the video of me. I should be able to do both. I should be able to make a little video of me in the corner. Let's set that up now. Video capture device, little window, I'll call it. And then device will be the same device. And then check this out. I'm going to shrink him down to like there. Okay. Are you guys, is that working? Can you see that? Now, boom. Although it's in the way, you don't really want that to be like right where it is, huh? So I can make it even smaller, like that. And then eventually I'd have to move the window over. But that's probably better, I assume. That looks okay. And then now I've lost my chat window. It's hard to keep both open. So I have to keep a chat window somewhere in the thing. Yeah, the wiki page looks good. Way better. See? This is why we do this. Thank you. Other people are going to be like, really? This is what we're doing with their time, is we're learning how to use software? Part of this is you could learn how to stream. Like, anybody could do this. You get OBS. It's free. And then once OBS is installed on your computer, you need to set like sources, and it's complicated. But once you have it figured out and people are working with you, then everything's fine. So we're about to do Zosimos of Panopolis. I'm going to set my alarm to go for an hour. I hate the idea of being rushed, though. This is crazy. Maybe I don't want an alarm like for an hour. Maybe I want to set an alarm at a time. Because, like, then it doesn't psychologically feel like I'm rushing myself. This is rough. All right, we're doing it. Go. Zosimos of Panopolis. So, Zosimos of Panopolis. I'm scared and I'm rushing myself. Also known, that's it. I'm going to add, like, another 20 minutes just to make myself know that I don't feel like I have an hour and 20, hour and 15, hour and 17 minutes and 18 seconds. 23. 1 hour, 17:23. That's going to be how long this video is from now. I don't know. I don't. Go ahead. Find an esoteric explanation for that. Zosimos of Panopolis, also known by the Latin name Zosimos Alchemista, was a Greco-Egyptian alchemist and a Gnostic mystic. You know what? Just really quickly, because we could, just like Euclid of Tyre, because someone wanted to know, and you know what? That's fine. We can do that. Euclid of Tyre. If you type it in, everyone else knows who that is. If you type Euclid on Wikipedia, this is another reason why you shouldn't rely on Wikipedia. Like, and people say this, like, why are you reading Wikipedia? Well, it's just a basic background so you can get closer. Sometimes called Euclid of Alexandria. Really? Okay. His birth town of Tyre. You can go through Wikipedia and you'll end up finding the truth anyway. But if you just read it at surface value, you might miss something important. So Tyre is the coolest city ever in a lot of ways. But like calling it a city is a little missing the point because it's more than a city, right? It's this epicenter of awesome, very close to Aleppo and Tripoli, here along the coast. And along the coast where there was a lot of trade, and today there's a lot of authoritarianism on both sides, liberal Western authoritarianism and Islamic Sharia. So turtles, also everybody loves turtles. Tyre is just one of the coolest places, and I could be pronouncing it like not the way people want, like Tyros. I think Tyre is the way you want to go, but the point is now it's not in Phoenicia, it's in Lebanon, and Lebanon gets kind of a bad name, but not really. It's mostly thought of as like the more the more liberal Islamic state. Like you can go there, you can hang out, it's okay. And a lot of French is spoken. It's a French cultural place at this point. France took over Napoleon was interested in all of the ancient Tartarian cities. So anything that Napoleon took over, you're going to want to check out. Like Napoleon was a conspiracy theorist, essentially. Okay. I don't think there's much more you need to know about this. There is one side note if you're at all interested. I would say watch the Battle of Algiers movie. The Battle of Algiers. It's an interesting movie. It's not about Tyre. It's about Algeria, the Algiers. But it is, it's about the French occupied Algiers. And so the relationship between Lebanon and Algeria and Morocco and all these places to France is very close and important. And if you want to know a bit about what happened when they were taking it, a great other movie is Passion in the Desert. Well, it's weird. I don't recommend this as a family film per se, although I saw it as a kid, and, granted, I'm strange. But Passion in the Desert is about a guy who is a French soldier who nearly dies, and then he meets a leopard, basically, that either would have killed him or not, and ends up saving his life for the most part. And yeah, it's a wild movie. There's definitely some weird, like, he kind of falls in love with the Sphinx or something. It's based on like a book by what's his name again? Like Balzac. I had to do like a mental game, and you know which one, to remember what his name was. But yeah, Balzac is great. Balzac is one of my favorite. I prefer Balzac to Hugo. Okay, so Drews. I almost want to get into Drews. Let's do that for a second. Yeah, so the math alarm. So I got a math alarm set up recently for my phone. Mike Stellium 7, who I'm going to do an interview with, I think, tomorrow. I don't want to freak him out by like announcing it to the world, but guys, it's going to be the greatest interview ever. And you guys know Mike. Mike is Stellium 7. He does a bunch of videos. He got a great channel. He's a hacker, or a former hacker. He at this point has gone the straight and narrow, raised a family, does what he's got to do. But he was part of a very successful tech company, turned good, helping people with medical lab intakes and stuff. So he's done a lot of important things beyond that, and he's a chiropractor, and he's got he's established himself in the real world. Yet he's gone through this crazy life. Like now he's a titanologist. He's focusing on finding out about heart rocks. By the way, that was something interesting. I just saw that movie, The Bad Guys, which is like a kids movie, and I was with kids at the time, which makes the most sense. Good movie though. There's a heartstone. The whole movie centers around a guinea pig who everyone thinks is, the goody two shoes who's trying to help the bad guys learn how to be good guys. And he saved the town from a heartstone, which is like a volcanic meteor projectile that is shaped like a heart, although it's wedged like a butt. Like it's like there's like cheeks to the heart. And this comes up in the story because it's for kids. But the rock has untold energy or something crazy in it. And yeah. Anyway, the heart rock is pretty important. Wow, I still have the screen up. That's embarrassing. I should work on learning how to use my software better. But now you can see two of me. Boom. There we go. I'm going to learn all about this. I'm going to be really impressed with myself. So, anyway, Christianity and Druze, Zosimos of Panopolis. I didn't finish. Let me get into Zosimos first. Can't do this in an hour. That's ridiculous. He was born in Panopolis, present-day Achaim in the south of Roman Egypt, and flourished in 300. He wrote the oldest known book on alchemy, which is the Kairos Meta, using the Greek word for things made by hand. Pieces of this work have survived in the original Greek language and in translations into Syriac and Arabic. He is one of about 40 authors represented in a compendium of alchemical writings that was probably put together in Constantinople in the 7th or 8th century AD, copies of which exist in manuscripts in Venice and in Paris. Stephen of Alexandria is another. So this is one of those examples of everybody was amazing in the 3rd century, and then by the 7th century, we now call this Ishmaelite group the Muhammadans. And the Muhammadans, it's not just Muslims, they're Muhammadans, right? It's not just that they have allegiance to Germany, it's that they have allegiance to the dictator. This is where things change. And all of these figures, then Islam can say, well, we are the intellectual capital of the world, And they were, but because they killed and stole these guys' things. Not to say that the Westerners didn't kill and steal other people's things, and eventually got their hands on through Greece this information. But then that's also an interesting point because you have a division of culture that starts to emerge. So that's the beginning of that. Anyway, Zosimos is way cooler than people realize, and he's often associated with being kind of a Muslim alchemist, and it's just not correct exactly. Or rather, he was not a Muhammadan because he was centuries before that. Anyway, Arabic translations of texts were discovered in 1995. In a copy of the Book of Keys of Mercy and the Secrets of Wisdom by Ibn al-Hassan, and that was my boy. We talked about him a little bit later. He's I think we talked about it last time. I'll bring him up again. He was 11th or 12th century, so he is a Muslim, even though he's a Sufi. And so then you start to learn about, oh wow, there's like the most intellectual people in the world at that time are called Muslims. But that makes sense at that time because then they think God is like this arabesque. It's not a single parent who writes books, man or woman. It's so you start to get into the idea of Persian alchemy, and we talked a little bit about Persian alchemy last time, but we'll go into it deeper. It's probably gonna be a theme for a while. So, unfortunately, the translations were incomplete and seemingly non-verbatim. The famous index of Arabic books, Kitab al-Faris by Ibn al-Nadim. By the way, I just wanted to mention, you'll notice this a lot. By the time that it's Muhammadan era, translations are incomplete and seemingly non-verbatim, meaning that they've been changed to fit a narrative, either political or some other reason. So Ibn al-Nadim mentions earlier translations of 4 books by Zosimos. However, due to the inconsistency in transliterations, these texts were attributed to names Zosimos, Dosimos, and Rimos. So, again, learn about Phoenician letters because the fact that Z, and Th would be a similar sound. Also, Th, something I could be wrong. It might have been Thosimos as Tahasimo or something like that, but I imagine they would have spelled it funny for that reason. Also, it is possible that 2 of them are translations of the same book. Fuat Zezgin, a historian of Islamic sciences, found 15 manuscripts of Zosimos in 6 libraries at Tehran, Cairo, Istanbul, Gotha, Dublin, and Rampur. Michelle Mertens analyzed what is known about these manuscripts in her translation of Zosimos, concluding that the Arabic translation seems extremely rich and promising, and regretting the difficulty of access to these materials until translated editions are available. Zosimos provided one of the first definitions of alchemy as the study of the compositions of water, movement, growth, embodiment, and disembodying, drawing the spirits from the bodies and bonding the spirits within the bodies. In general, Zosimos' understanding of alchemy reflects the influence of Hermetic and Gnostic spiritualities. He asserted that the fallen angels taught the art of metallurgy to the women they married, an idea also recorded in the Book of Enoch and later repeated in the Gnostic Apocryphon of John. This is an interesting thing, by the way. You think of the prohibition of alcohol and the burning of witches connected to the removal of these trades women were in control of. And at the time, women were in charge. We have videos of this, like a couple years ago, I set up, about the asuit, which is the silver chainmail like fabric that women wore in ancient Egypt and before in Samaria and Sumer. So women were in charge of metallurgy at the most medical level of metallurgy, and of brewing, of fermenting, and control of doing that correctly. And look what happened after they lost control. So the ancient divine writings say that the angels became enamored of women, and descending taught them all the works of nature. From them, therefore, is the first tradition, Kima, concerning these arts. For they called this book Kima, and hence the science of chemistry takes its name. The external process of metallic transmutation, the transformation of lead and copper into silver and gold, were said to always mirror an inner process of purification and redemption. In his work concerning the true book of Sophie, the Egyptian and of the divine master of the Hebrews and the Sabaoth powers, Zosimos wrote, "There are 2 sciences and 2 wisdoms, that of the Egyptians and that of the Hebrews." Oh, sorry. Let me do that again. There are 2 sciences and 2 wisdom, that of the Egyptians and that of the Hebrews. And we've said this before on the show. Al-Hebra and alchemy, the study of Kemet and the study of the Hebrews. And it becomes a study of math and the study of chemistry. But it's a little bit more complicated than that. Which latter is confirmed by divine justice. The Egyptians is confirmed by divine justice. The science and wisdom of the most excellent dominate the one and the other. Both originate in olden times. Their origin is without a king, autonomous and immaterial. It is not concerned with material and corruptible bodies. It operates without submitting to the strange influences, supported by prayers and divine grace. The symbol of chemistry is drawn from the creation by its adepts, who cleanse and save the divine bond in the elements, and who free the divine spirit from its mixture with the flesh. As the sun is, so to speak, a flower of the fire, and simultaneously the heavenly sun, the right eye of the world. So copper, when it blooms, when it takes the color of gold through purification, becomes a terrestrial sun, which is king of the earth, and the sun is the king of heaven. Greek alchemists used what they called, I should almost bother trying to pronounce it, Udwir. I can't do it. It's going to sound Slavic if I try. Get a Greek in here, he'll help. Meaning both divine water and sulfurous water. For Zosimos, the alchemical vessel was imagined as a baptismal font, and the tincturing vapors of mercury and sulfur were likened to the purifying waters of baptism, which perfected and redeemed the Gnostic initiate. Zosimos drew upon the Hermetic image of the crater or mixing bowl, a symbol of the divine mind, in which the Hermetic initiate was baptized and purified in the course of a visionary ascent through the heavens and into the transcendent realms. Similar ideas of spiritual baptism in the waters of the transcendent pleroma are characteristic of the Sethian Gnostic texts unearthed at Nag Hammadi, or the Jung Codex, which again, I just want to point that out if you look for Where is that, man? Young Codex. All right, I'll just do it this way. There we go. Non-commodity library, Young Codex. Very cool. Probably the coolest thing about the non-commodity library, in my opinion, or like the most corroborative thing that I've heard. Let me do a quick check on these tabs. Okay, I think we're good. That tab you play with the eyeballs on is a super important tab. That is your stream deck. It's supposed to be moving between the tabs. I don't quite understand what that means. I'm sorry. I'll have to keep learning about stream decks and the eye or whatever you're saying. I should be using the stream deck. It's just one more thing to learn how to use. Like I can use it. I had it plugged in, set up, but I haven't figured out what to use it for to switch buttons yet. And as I'm doing this, I'm like, oh, that would be a cool thing to have a button for. So I'll get that going. One of Zosimos' texts is about a sequence of dreams related to alchemy and present the proto-science as much more religious experience. In his dream, he first comes to an altar and meets Eon, who calls himself the priest of inner sanctuaries, and I submit myself to an unendurable torment. Eon then fights and impales Zosimos with a sword, dismembering him in accordance with the rule of harmony, referring to the division into 4 bodies, natures, and elements. You think of Osiris. He takes the pieces of Zosimos to the altar and burned them upon the fire of the art, till I perceived by the transformation of the body that I had become spirit. From there, Ion cries blood and horribly melts into the opposite of himself, into a mutilated anthroparion, which Carl Jung perceived as the first concepts of the homunculus in alchemical nature. Oh, Carl Jung, aren't you just a little dreamy? Forever Jung. Zosimos wakes up. Remind me, I have to put my Forever Young t-shirt out because I have the design for that, and I think that's funny. That also in Living Kills, which is my Camus shirt. I should put that back out. I have limited editions out there, but not for everybody. Zosimos wakes up and asks himself, is not this the composition of the waters? And returns to sleep, beginning the vision again. He constantly wakes up, ponders to himself, and returns to sleep during these visions, returning to the same altar. Zosimos finds a woman being boiled alive, yet still alive, who says to him, the sight that you see is the entrance and the exit and the transformation. See, I feel like Gnosticism, that's where the idea of hell comes from, the way we understand it today. I used to think it was just, oh, hell is bad because it's Hellenistic and we're trying to be anti-Greek. But I now think it's more that the way the Gnostics explain things is so terrifying that the average person was like, well, you know what? That doesn't sound good at all. Yeah. Okay, it's very much like the Holy Mountain story. A man being boiled alive, still alive, says to him, the sight that you see is the entrance, the exit, and the transformation. Those who seek to obtain the art or moral perfection enter here and become spirits by escaping from the body, which can be regarded as human distillation, just as how distilled water purifies it. Distilling the body purifies it well. He then sees a brazen man, another homunculus, as Jung believed any man described as being metal is perceived as being a homunculus, a leaden man, and a gotha daemon, and also a homunculus. A gotha daemon is like a genie almost, right? Like or a living spirit. Yeah, it's a spirit, the personified personal companion spirit. But also the Gotha Daemon, the alchemist, who is the name of a character. Zosimos also dreams of a place of punishments where all who enter immediately burst into flames and submit themselves to an enduring torment. So this is the alchemical allegory, and we did talk about this last time. I'm going to cut to the Book of Keys. The book is written as commentary in 10 chapters on the Book of the 10 Keys, a work described to Democritus of Abdera, or Pseudo-Democritus. Sounds interesting. At the beginning of the book, folio 41a 3-4 is written. This commentary was Zosimos' last text written for the Theososabea. According to Abbott, the book gives an essence of Zosimos' teachings, as the preamble saying that the book is unclear. Okay, get this in. Look into it. Books are written to my ladies, and mainly in dialogue form. Okay, to my lady though. What do you guys think? It couldn't really be. It must mean more. has to do with my Lady Sophia of Christ, the Sophia. So Al-Tugray, a poet, an alchemist, born in Isfahan, which is Spahan in the Middle Persian, greater city in the Isfahan region, about 406 miles south of Tehran. So Muyad al-Din composed poems in Arabic, was an administrative secretary. He ultimately became the second most senior official after the vizier in the civil administration of the Seljuk Empire. So, a poet in charge of the empire. Upon the death of Amir, a power struggle ensued between Masud's sons. Al-Tugray sided with the emir's elder son, but the younger prevailed. In retribution, the younger son accused Al-Tugray of heresy and had him beheaded. So, again, when was this? This is 10 to 11. At the first century of Islam, they bothered to be very impressive. It's not until the 10th or 12th century that because of the Crusades and everything, that they become so authoritarian, so didactic, and this beheading starts to happen because people are fanatical. Up to this point, there are groups that are religiously connected to Gnosticism and Islam that don't fight with each other nearly as much. Al-Tugray was a well-known and prolific writer on astrology and alchemy, and many of his poems are preserved today as well. In the field of alchemy, Al-Tugray is best known for his large compendium titled Mafaiti al-Rama wa Masabi al-Hikmah. All right, help me out, guys. I'm not an Arab expert, so we should learn more about what book this is. Somebody's going to be able to find this. Read it to me. Which incorporated extensive extracts from the earlier Arabic alchemical writings, as well as the Arabic translations from Zosimos of Panopolis, and that's the one I am more familiar with. Old alchemy treatises written in Greek, which were, until 1995, erroneously attributed to unknown alchemists by mistakes and inconsistencies in the transliterations and transcriptions of his name into Arabic. This is funny, too. There's like 19 cases in how to spell a name for someone in Turkish, 26 in Finnish, and then I think there's like 9 to 12 in Bulgarian and in Croatian. And so the same name, you might look for an author and you type in someone's name. Let's say you had a Dewey Decimal System and you're going back then. The same name, you'd have to have 19 different ways of spelling it. And some of those ways are very different because it could be the beginnings change to the name or the endings change to the name. So you could be looking at the same guy and think he's 19 different people. And that happens all the time. Okay, the alchemist Agathodamon was an alchemist in late Roman Egypt, known only from fragments quoted in medieval alchemical treatises, chiefly called the Enipigraphos, which refer to works of his believed to be from the 3rd century. He is primarily remembered for his various descriptions of elements and minerals, most particularly his description of a method of producing silver and a substance he had created, which he had called fiery poison, and which, judging by his account, was arsenic trioxide, a highly toxic and phosphoric oxide, a molecular ion that can reach both as an acid and as a base. Interesting. It can react both as an acid and a base. Okay. Interesting. I need to look into arsenic trioxide. Sounds pretty wild. He described the fiery poison as being formed when a certain mineral, most probably relgar or orpiment, were fused with natron, naturally occurring sodium carbonate, and that dissolved in water to give a clear solution. He also wrote of how, when he placed a fragment of copper in the solution, the copper turned a deep green hue, leading further validity to the suggestion that orpiment or realgar was used, as they are both arsenic ores, and this would be the hue achieved from the copper after it had been placed in arsenic trioxide, had the substance formed been copper arsenite. Agatha Demon's discovery exists as a part of the foundations for later use of poison, and arsenic and related substances were used regularly in the centuries as a mean of poisoning and murder. Since the only records of his existence are references in later works, he may be apocryphal, but since the practice of alchemy itself began to decline around this time, he is believed to have lived, and it may be that much of his work or writings were lost. This information that was gathered by the Nestorians eventually passed on to the Arabs, and this part contributed to the flourishing of alchemy in the region and in their hands. The modern English word alchemy comes from the Arabic language, and many of the foundations for alchemy, Western, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let's all relax, guys. Let's all relax. Chrysopia. The term chrysopia from chrysopelia, meaning gold making, refers to the artificial production of gold, most commonly by the alleged transmutation of base metals such as lead. We kind of already know this. There's not a lot I can go on about there. Mary the Jewess, or Mary the Prophetess, is an early alchemist who is known from the works of the Gnostic Christian writer Zosimos of Panopolis. On the basis of Zosimos' comments, she lived between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD in Alexandria. French Taylor and Lippmann list her as one of the first alchemical writers, dating her works to no later than the 1st century. She is credited with inventing several kinds of chemical apparatus and is considered to be the first true alchemist of the Western world. Maria the alchemist. Probably real. Could have just been Sophia of Christ, no? But okay, I bet she was real. Through Zosimos, many of the beliefs of Mary the Jewess can be observed. Mary incorporated lifelike attributes into her descriptions of metal, such as bodies, souls, and spirits. Mary believed that metals had two different genders, and by joining these two genders together, a new entity could be made. Wow. So polarization of purified ore. By joining the different gendered substances together, a unity of substances could be obtained. Alloys. My word, lady. My lady Mary the Prophetess, Mary the Jewess. Go ahead and call her the Jewess because, I feel like the point is to elevate her and pump her up, not to bring her down. The primary sources of the existence of Mary the Jewess within the context of alchemy is Zosimos of Panopolis, who wrote in the 4th century the oldest extant books on alchemy, blah, blah, blah. We know this. George Syncellus, a Byzantine chronicler of the 8th century, presented Mary as a teacher of Democritus, who she met in Memphis, Egypt, during the time of Pericles. The 10th century Kitab al-Farist of Ibn al-Nadim cited Mary as one of 52 most famous alchemists and stated that she was able to prepare caput mortuum, a purple pigment. Well, that's got to be important, an iron oxide to create a purple pigment. The early medieval alchemist text ascribed to an otherwise unknown Morianus Romanus, calling her Mary the Prophetess. And the Arabs knew her as the daughter of Plato, a name which in Western alchemist text was reserved for white sulfur. Oh, the daughter of Plato. All right. Although none of Mary's writings had survived, some quotations credited to her are found in Hermetic teachings. The most notable of these are found in the Dialogue of Mary and Eros on the Magistry of Hermes, which is an extract made from an anonymous Christian philosopher. Operations are described in this document, which would later become the basis of alchemy, such as leucosis, whitening, and xanthosis, yellowing. The documents described for the first time an acidic bath and other acids. There are also several recipes for making gold from plants. Mandragora, for example. Oh, you need to use a nightshade to make gold. Interesting. Several cryptic alchemical precepts have been attributed to Mary. She is said to have spoken of the union of opposites. Join the male and the female, and you will find what is sought. The following was known as the axiom of Maria. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, and out of the third comes the one as the fourth. Mary Louise von Franz, an associate of psychologist Carl Jung, gave an alternative version. Out of 1 comes 2, out of 2 comes 3, and from the third comes the one as the fourth. Okay. I'm going to have to worry about what that means later. You guys are going to go ahead and figure out how different that really is to you. Carl Jung used this axiom as a metaphor for the wholeness and individuation. Mary, along with Agatha Demon, Pseudo-Democritus, and Hermes Trismegistus, were mentioned by Zosimos of Panopolis in his description of certain devices such as the Tripicus, the Xirtus, and the Bon Marie. I like that. I want one. But her contributions are disputed and not clear. The Tripicus was a kind of alembic, which is a still or sieve distillation for liquids, with 3 arms that was used to obtain substances purified by distillation. It is not known whether Mary invented it, but Zosimos credited the first description of the instrument to her. It is still used today in chemistry labs. In her writing, quoted by Zosimos, many recommend the copper or bronze used to make the tubes should be the thickness of a frying pan, and that the joints between the tubes and the still heads should be sealed with flour paste. The Xirtus is a device used to heat substances in alchemy to collect vapors. It is an airtight container with a sheet of copper around its side. When working properly, all the joints form a tight vacuum. The use of such a sealed container in the Hermetic arts led to the term hermetically sealed. The Xirtus was said to be a replication of the processes of the formation of the gold that was occurring in the bowels of the earth. There you are. There you are. So this is what they think the inside of the earth looks like. Also interesting. A center pressure and being held in by concave surface, I guess. Mysticism, man. This instrument was later modified by German chemist Franz von Socklet in 1879 to create the extractor that bears his name, the Socklet extractor. Mary's name survives in her invention of the Bon Marie, Mary's bath, which limits the maximum temperature of a container and its contents to the boiling point of separated liquid, essentially a double boiler. It is extensively used in chemical processes for which a gentle heat is necessary. The term was introduced by Arnold of Villanova in the 14th century. He looks dreamy. And it was used for cooking food. Can't help but be kind of interested in this guy. I might look into him as an alchemist, but it's going to take too much time. So we want to go into Iranian religions for a second. So it's not just Zoroastrianism. It's not just Islam. It's not just like Sufism. Not just Manichaeism, which is one that we're going to go into, I'm sure. We did some of them the first episode. Let's go. We talked to. Did we talk about Zoroastrianism enough? You know, Zoroaster was there's a dualistic cosmology of good and evil, and there's avatars of God that have been created, including kind of a dynamic between this evil aspect of God. So it's not quite Satan, but it's more than Satan, because Satan's just supposed to be an angel that's risen up out of the creation. If anything, Lucifer represents kind of the Ubermensch, because he's more than man, right? Or she is, or whatever, but not the same as God. You know, Zoroaster has that aspect. Also, it has a messianic aspect. There's this, the birthing of God from a human virgin source, all that. So the most important texts of Zoroastrianism are contained within the Avesta, including the central writings thought to be composed by Zoroaster, known as the Gathas, as well as the poems within the Yasna that define the teachings of Zoroaster, which serve as the basis of worship. The religious philosophy of Zoroaster divides into earlier Iranian gods of the Proto-Indo-Aryan tradition into emanations of the world as Ahuras and Devas. Think of them as a swirling dervish, the latter of which are not considered to be worthy of worship. Zoroaster proclaimed that Ahura Mazda was the supreme creator, the creative and sustaining force of the universe through the Asha, and that human beings are given a choice between supporting Ahura Mazda or not, making them ultimately responsible for their own choices. Though Ahura Mazda had no equal contesting force, Angra Manu, the destructive spiritual mentality whose forces are born from the Akamana, evil thought. See, so God had an evil thought, and then that led to the personification of the Angra Manu. It's considered to be the main adversarial force of the religion, standing against Spenta Manu, creative spirit and mentality. Maybe worth pulling up some of those things a bit. Middle Persian literature developed Angra Manu further into Ahriman, advancing him to be the direct adversary to Ahura Mazda. Additionally, the life force that originates from Ahura Mazda, known as the Asha, truth cosmic order, stands in opposition to the Druj, the falsehood deceit. Ahura Mazda is considered to be the all-good with no evil emanation from the deity. Ahura Mazda works in Getig, the visible material realm, and Manog, the invisible spiritual and mental realm. Through the 6 when excluding Spentamanu, Amesha Spentas. Wow. So, as you see, there's a really serious amount of spiritual and physical description to the Persian religion. The name Zoroaster is a Greek rendering of the Vastian name Zarathustra, thus spake. He is known as Zartosht and Zardosht in Persian and Zartosht in Gujarati. I wonder how close that is to some other languages in the area, Gujarati. And also in it now makes me wonder about some of the other languages that are lost. Zoroastrian's name, like Guarani, Zoroastrian's name of the religion is Mazdayazna, which combines Mazda with the Avestian word Yasna, meaning worship, devotion. In English, an adherent of the faith is commonly called a Zoroastrian or a Zarathustrian. An older expression still used today is Bedin, meaning the best religion. Oh, I wonder if Bedouin also, you have to wonder if those things are connected. Middle Persian, way mean good, Deen meaning, whatever. Zoroastrian liturgy, this term is used as a title for a lay individual who has been formally inducted into the religion as Naviot in the Naviot ceremony. In contrast to the priestly titles of Osta, Osti, Urvad, Hirbod, Mobed, and Dastur. The first surviving references to Zoroaster in English scholarship is attributed to Thomas Brown in 1602 to 1682, who briefly refers to Zoroaster in his 1643 Religio Medici. The term Mazdaism is an alternative form in English used as well for the faith, taking Mazda from the Ahura Mazda and adding the suffix ism to suggest a belief system. The theology, Zoroastrians believe that there is one universal, transcendent, all-good, and uncreated, supreme creator deity, Ahura Mazda, or the wise Lord, Ahura meaning Lord, Mazda meaning wisdom, and Avestan. Zoroaster keeps the two attributes separate as two different concepts in most of the Gathas, yet sometimes combine them into one form. Zoroaster also claims that Ahura Mazda is omniscient, but not omnipotent. In the Gathas, Ahura Mazda is noted as working through the emanations known as Amesha Spenta, and with the help of other Ahuras, such of which Suraosha is the only one explicitly named of the latter category. Scholars and theologians have long debated the nature of Zoroastrianism, with dualism, monotheism, polytheism, and being the main terms applied to the religion. Well, I think we all learned henotheism, and it's going to sound like henotheism is the right term. Some scholars assert that Zoroastrianism's concepts of divinity cover both being and mind as immanent entities, describing Zoroastrianism as being a belief in an immanent self-creative universe with a consciousness at its special attribute, therefore putting Zoroastrianism in the pantheistic fold, sharing in its origins with Indian Hinduism. In any case, Asha, the main spiritual force which comes from Ahura Mazda, is the cosmic order, which is the antithesis of chaos, which is evident as Dru's falsehood and disorder. The resulting cosmic conflict involves all the creation, mental, spiritual, and material, including humanity at its core, which has an active role to play in the conflict. In the Zoroastrian tradition, Druze comes from Angra Manu, also referred to in later texts as Ahriman. The destructive spirit mentality, while the main representative of Asha in this collective is Spenta Manu. Sorry, there's a reflection on the screen. It's getting bright in here. The creative spirit mentality, Ahura Mazda is immanent in humankind and interacts with creation through emanations through known as what Amesha the bounteous holy immortals, which are representative and guardians of different aspects of creation and the idea of personality. Ahura Mazda, through these Amesha is assisted by a league of countless divinities called Yazatas, meaning worthy of worship, and each is generally a hypostasis of a moral or physical aspect of creation. According to Zoroastrian cosmology and articulating the Hunavara formula, Ahura Mazda made the ultimate triumph of good against Angra Mainyu evident. Ahura Mazda will ultimately prevail over the evil, at which point reality will undergo a cosmic renovation called Frashokereti, and limited time will end. In the final renovation, all of creation, even the souls of the dead, will be that were initially banished to or chose to descend into, quote, darkness, will be reunited with Ahura Mazda in the Kashyatavara, meaning best dominion, being resurrected to immortality. In Middle Persian literature, the prominent belief was that at the end of times, a savior figure known as the Saoshyant would bring about the Frashokereti, while in the Gothic text, the term Saoshyant meant one who brings benefit, referring to all believers of Mazda Yasna, but changed into a messianic concept in later writings. So it could be that this idea of the Messiah thing isn't the original version of Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrian theology includes foremost the importance of the following. The threefold path of Asha revolves around good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. There also is a heavy emphasis on spreading happiness, mostly through charity and respecting spiritual quality and duty of both men and women. Zoroastrianism emphasis on the protection and veneration of nature and its elements has led some to proclaim it as the world's first proponent of ecology. The Avesta and other texts call for the protection of water, earth, fire, and air, making it in effect an ecological religion. It is not surprising that Mazdism is called the first ecological religion. The reverence for Yazata's divine spirits emphasizes the preservation. Okay, we can go over like 6 times if you want Wikipedia. However, this particular assertion is limited to natural forces held as emanations of Asha by the fact that early Zoroastrians had a duty to exterminate evil species, a dictate no longer followed in modern Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism is not entirely uniform in theological and philosophical thought, especially with historical and modern influences having a significant impact on individual and local beliefs, practices, values, and vocabulary, sometimes merging with traditions, in other cases displacing it. The ultimate purpose in the life of a practicing Zoroastrian is to become an Ashavan, a master of Asha, and to bring happiness to the world, which contributes to the cosmic battle against evil. The core teaching of Zoroastrians include practicing charity, following the threefold path of Asha, Himata, Huksta, and Huvashta, the good thoughts, the good word, and good deeds. The spiritual equality between of duty of men and women alike, being good for the sake of goodness without the hope of reward. Okay, there's a bunch of practices to Zoroastrianism that involve fire, keeping candles lit, and you'll notice that they have the Ferengi cap, and a masked character wearing the Smurf cap is kind of an interesting thing. This mask probably isn't this face veil is probably not an evil thing. It's part of their religious order. So it's interesting, this idea of wearing a mask is part of the ancient priest class tradition. A mask that covers your nose, and the Smurf hat. That's something to consider. Also, this is a Tang dynasty figure. So when you think about China is part of Persia and that part of the West. And if you're thinking about Persia was connected with China at that time. So very interesting that they follow this, and that they have to burn fires like the Olympics. That also comes up as the Olympics follows this tradition. Look up Zoroastrianism connections to Utopia and Sophia. Very good answer. Also, someone said the Medicine Buddha, John Juan. Have you ever been to the Medicine Buddha in Santa Cruz? That's like one of my favorite places. Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna grab something. I gotta block out the have to block out the window clear because it's hard to see my screen. So I want to change that a bit because it's reflective a bit. But it's getting better. Okay, so there is water and fire altars, classic antiquity, Indo-Aryan roots, but there are other religions, so we'll have to go back to it. But I'm going to go into the decline in the Middle Ages. I think that's where it's going to start to matter. Most of the Sassanid Empire was overthrown by the Arabs over the course of 16 years in the 7th century. Mohammedans. Although the administration of the state was rapidly Islamicized and subsumed under the Umayyad Caliphate, in the beginning there was little serious pressure. So basically there you have it. A lot of people tell you that the 16th century is everything. I see the 7th century as everything. But you have to remember the flamenco timeline, that half of the 7th century is in the 16th century and half of the 16th century is in the 7th century. What are you going to do? So because of the sheer numbers, the conquered Zoroastrians had to be treated as dhimmis. Despite doubts of the validity of this identification and that persisted down the centuries. So these are converts or whatever? No. The word literally means protected person. So this is like a Christian, a tax-paying dhimmi. So they were considered different right away. But a lot of them converted to not paying taxes by calling themselves Muslims. It made them eligible for protection. Islamic jurists took the stance that only Muslims could be perfectly moral, but that unbelievers might as well be left to their own iniquities, so long as they did not vex their overlords. In the main, once the conquest was over and the local terms were agreed upon, the Arab governors protected the local population in exchange for tribute. The Arab population for the Sassanid tax system, both the land tax levied on the landowners and the poll tax levied on the individuals, called zizya, a tax levied on non-Muslims, or the aka dhimmis, in time. This poll tax came to be used as a means to humble the non-Muslims, and a number of laws and restrictions evolved to emphasize their inferior status. Under the earlier Orthodox caliphs, as long as a non-Muslim paid their taxes and adhered to the dhimmi laws, administrators were enjoined to leave non-Muslims in their religion and their land. Under Abbasid rule, Muslim Iranians, who by then were in the majority, in many instances showed severe disregard for and mistreated local Zoroastrians. For example, in the 9th century, a deeply venerated cypress tree in Khorasan, which Parthian-era legends suppose had been planted by Zoroaster himself, was felled for the construction of a palace in Baghdad, 2,000 miles away. In the 10th century, on the day that a Tower of Silence had been completed at much trouble and expense, a Muslim official contrived to get up onto it and call the Adhan, the Muslim call to prayer, from its walls. This was turned into a pretext to annex the building. Ultimately, Muslim scholars like al-Biruni found few records left of the belief of or the insistence of Khawarizmians. And I'm going to look these guys up, because figures like Qutaba ibn Muslim extinguished and ruined in every possible way all those who knew how to write and read the Khawarizmi writing, who knew of the history of the country, and who knew and studied their sciences. As a result, these things are involved in so much obscurity that it is impossible to obtain an accurate knowledge of the history of the country since the time of Islam. Through subject to a new leadership and harassment, the Zoroastrians were able to continue their former way, although there was a slow but steady social and economic pressure to convert, with the nobility and city dwellers being the first to do so. While Islam was accepted more slowly amongst the peasantry and land gentry, power and worldly advantage now lay with the followers of Islam, and although the official policy was one of aloof contempt, there were individual Muslims eager to proselytize and ready to use all sorts of means to do so. In time, a tradition evolved by which Islam was made to appear as partly Iranian religion. One example of this was the legend that Hussein, son of the fourth Caliph Ali and grandson of Islam's prophet Muhammad, had married a captive Sassanid princess named Sharbani. This wholly fictitious figure was said to have been who had born Hussein's son, the historical fourth Shia Imam, who claimed that the caliphate rightly belonged to him and his descendants, and that the Umayyads had wrongly wrested it from him. The alleged descent from the Sassanid house counterbalanced the Arab nationalism of the Umayyads, and the Iranian national association with a Zoroastrian past was disarmed. Thus, according to scholar Mary Boyce, it was no longer the Zoroastrians alone who stood for patriotism and loyalty to the past. The damning indictment that becoming Muslim was un-Iranian only remained an idiom in Zoroastrian texts. With Iranian support, the Abbasids overthrew the Umayyads in 750, and in the subsequent caliphate government that normally lasted until 1258, Muslim Iranians received marked for favor in the new government, both in Iran and in the capital of Baghdad. This mitigated the antagonism between Arabs and Iranians, but sharpened the distinction between Muslims and non-Muslims. The Abbasids zealously persecuted heretics, and although this was directly mainly at Muslim sectarians, it also created a harsher climate for non-Muslims. So here's a thought that I have. Let me, gosh, this is crazy. Is that how that works? Cool. Here's a thought I've got. So, if Islam is this destructive towards other religions, and we've got 1,400 years ago this happening, or 13 to 1,700 years ago this happening, isn't that a little ridiculous? Because how is Zoroastrianism still around? I mean, clearly they try to destroy it in every way, destroy the languages. I could believe this if this was 1700s, in flamenco timeline. But the idea that this has existed for just thousands of years, and that for like all of Islamic history, it's been suppressed, fought, they've had their land stolen time after time, and somehow it's just made it, is a little fishy to me. It's more likely that this was a much more recent changeover. If I'm not reading fast enough, you can always speed up the playback. I know you're being sarcastic, but I think that's funny. So, haha. Survival. Despite economic and social incentives to convert, Zoroastrianism remained strong in some regions, particularly in those furthest away from the caliphate capital at Baghdad. In Bukhara and present-day Uzbekistan, resistance to Islam required the 9th century Arab commander Qutaba to convert his province 4 times. The first 3 times, the citizen reverted to their older religion. Finally, the governor made their religion difficult for them in every way, turned the local fire temple into a mosque, and encouraged the local population to attend Friday prayers by paying each attendee 2 dirhams. The cities where Arab governors resided were particularly vulnerable to such pressures, and in these cases the Zoroastrians were left with no choice but to either conform or migrate to regions that had more amicable administrations. The 9th century came to define, with great number of Zoroastrian texts that were composed or rewritten during the 8th or 10th centuries, excluding copying and lesser amendments, which continued for some time thereafter. All of these works are in the Middle Persian dialect of the period, free of Arabic words, and written in the difficult Pahlavi script. I gotta learn about you. Hence the adoption of the term Pahlavi as the name of the variant of this language and of the genre of those Zoroastrian books. If read aloud, these books would still have been intelligible to the laity. Many of these texts are responses to the tribulations of the time, and all of them include exhortations to stand fast in their religious beliefs. Some, such as the Denkard, are doctrinal defenses of the religion, while others are explanations of theological aspects, such as the Bundazhizn, or the practical aspects, explanations of rituals, etc. Oh, the Bundazhizn like a cosmological encyclopedia? Yes, please. In Khorasan in northeastern Iran, a 10th century Iranian nobleman brought together 4 Zoroastrian priests to transcribe a Sassanid-era Middle Persian work titled The Book of the Lord from Pahlavi script into Arabic script. The transcription, which remained in Middle Persian prose, an Arabic version by al-Muqaffa also exists, was completed in 957 and subsequently became the basis for Firdausi's Book of Kings. It became enormously popular amongst both Zoroastrians and Muslims, and also served to propagate the Sassanid justification for overthrowing the Arsacides. that the Sassanids had restored the faith to its orthodox form, and that the Hellenistic Arsacides had followed Zoroastrianism to become corrupt. Among migrations were those to cities in or on the margins of the Great Salt Desert, in particular the Yazid and Kerman, which remain centers of Iranian Zoroastrianism to this day. Yazid became the seat of Iranian high priest during the Mongol Khanate rule, when the best hope for survival for a non-Muslim was to be inconspicuous. Crucial to the present-day survival of Zoroastrianism was the migration to northeastern Iranian town of Sanjan in southwestern Khorasan. From the northeastern town, from Sanjan in the southwestern Khorasan to Gujarat in western India. The descendants of that group today are known as the Parsis. And yeah, this is a big part of the story. As the Gujartis from the long tradition called anyone from Iran, who today represents the larger of the two groups of Zoroastrians in India. They speak Parsi, right, which is the what is left of that language we were just talking about from the Pahlavi. It becomes Parsi, and but Afghanistan has Parsi speakers as well. So they're heavily, it's interesting. They're allowed to keep their language but not their religion. The struggle between Zoroastrianism and Islam declined in the 10th and 11th century. Local Iranian dynasties, all vigorously Muslim, had emerged as largely independent vassals of the Caliph in the 16th century. In one of the early letters between Iranian Zoroastrians and their co-religious in India, the priests of Yazd lamented that no period in human history, not even that of Alexandria, had been more grievous or troublesome to the faithful than this millennium of the demon of wrath. Which doesn't mean Islam, just so you know. So it has survived, but it's not the most important thing. There are many similarities between Zoroastrian and Abrahamic religions, as pointed out in the Jewish Encyclopedia in 1906. While some scholars consider the key concepts of Zoroastrian dualism, the images of the deity, eschatology, resurrection, final judgment, messianic revelation of Zoroaster on the mountain with Moses on Mount Sinai, 3 sons of Pharaoh with 3 sons of Noah, heaven and hell, angelology, demonology, cosmology of 6 days or periods of creation, free will, amongst other influenced Abrahamic religions, while other scholars diminish or reject such influences. In 2006, Lester Grab concluded that there's a general agreement that the Persian religion and tradition had its influences on Judaism over the centuries, and the question is where this influence was and which of the developments in Judaism can be described or ascribed to the Iranian side of the, as opposed to the effect of the Greco or other culture. There exists distinction but also similarities between Zoroastrianism and Jewish law regarding marriage and procreation. Mary Boyce noted that besides Abrahamic religions, it also had its influence on Eastern and North Buddhism. So, I mean, there's got to be more connections to Egypt. I want to read that. Zoroastrianism is often compared to Manichaeism. Manichaeism, this is one I get confused how it's pronounced. Nominally an Iranian religion, it has its origins in Middle Eastern Gnosticism. Superficially, such as a comparison seems apt, as both are dualistic. Manichaeism adopted many of the Yzatas for its own pantheon. Gerardo Gnoli in the Encyclopedia of Religion says that we can assert that Manichaeism has its root in the Iranian religious traditions and that its relationship to Mazdaism or Zoroastrianism is more or less like that of Christianity to Judaism. But they are quite different. Manichaeism equated evil with matter and good with spirit, and was therefore particularly suitable as a doctrinal base for every form of asceticism, and many forms of mysticism. Zoroastrianism, on the other hand, rejects every form of asceticism, has no dualism of matter and spirit, only of good and evil, and sees the spiritual world as not very different from the natural world or the world paradise. Paradisa applies to both, because paradisa is Persian for garden or empire, and if you call an emperor a paradiser, you're also calling him a gardener. If you call a gardener a paradiser, you're also calling him an emperor, because a paradiser has to paradise the paradise, right? You have to garden your garden, whatever it is. Avesta, Legends. Let's jump ahead. So we did that for a minute, and we can skip some of this. Go ahead and look into Zoroastrianism more, but I'm going to save a deeper dive for later. The Anushtigan dynasty, also known as the Khwarezmian dynasty, was a Persianate Sunni Muslim dynasty of Turkic Mamluk origin. Okay. Here's what they look like. And you'll notice some of them are more Asian and some of them are more Turkish and some of them are more Persian or Sassanid. So there's a definite interesting difference there culturally. I don't think we need to jump too deep in, but you can see some of the architecture. Kind of nice. Okay. Pavli scripts looks like Sanskrit, kind of. Not entirely, but Sanskrit and Elvish. Okay, the encyclopedia for Zoroaster, evil spirit, Iranian religious political movement with its roots in Zoroastrianism, the Kuramites. We could go into that. I kind of want to skip even further. Turkoman Shia military groups, Kizilbash, Karmatians. We talked about them last time. Okay, let's talk about the Islamic figure, the Mahdi. In an eschatological messianic figure in Islam, who is believed to appear at the end of times to rid the world of evil and injustice. He is said to appear shortly before the prophet Isa, Jesus, and to be a righteous caliph over all Muslims. So, did this guy appear before Jesus already during Armageddon? I mean, I know they're talking about like Armageddon will come, but didn't it already? So in the Islamic narratives, following a period of great opposition and discrimination, the Mahdi would be recognized in Mecca and the Muslims would pledge allegiance to him as the Imam. After he would be given the sovereignty of Mecca, and an army would travel south from Medina to attack the Mahdi, but they would be swallowed in Baidah. This phenomenon is believed to be the ultimate proof of Imam's credibility and the truthfulness, and the Muslim armies would soon rush to join his side. The Imam will then deliver Muslims from the wrongful ruler who oppressed them, and his righteous state will obliterate poverty and weakness from the Islamic world. The latter years of his reign would coincide with the arrival of the Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, otherwise referred to simply as the Dajjal, the one-eyed prophet who is the Antichrist, and I think the movie Camera. So the Dajjal would take over the world and claim to be God. He would conquer every city and huge numbers of people would follow him. However, he would not be able to access four mosques: Masjid al-Haram, al-Masjid al-Nabawi, Masjid at-Tur, and al-Aqsa Moshka, located in the old city of Jerusalem. So, and then the other ones in Saudi Arabia, and the other ones in Mecca. And this one I don't know. Where the remains of the Muslim armies led by Imam al-Mahdi will be cornered. While al-Mahdi would lead the Fajr prayer in al-Aqsa Mosque, Jesus would descend from the heavens, join the Muslims in prayer, and then slay the Dajjal. Interesting. Though the Mahdi is not referenced in the Quran, he is mentioned in the Hadith literature. Amongst the first references to the Mahdi appears in the late 7th century with the revolutionary Mukhtar ibn Abi Ubayd declared Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya, a son of Caliph Ali, to be the Mahdi. Okay. This guy might be the Mahdi. So let's look into that. Several canonical compilations of hadith do include traditions concerning the Mahdi, although such traditions are notably absent from the first two revered Sunni hadith collections. Although the concept of the Mahdi is not essential doctrine to Islam, it is popular amongst Muslims. It has been part of the creed of Muslims for 1400 years. Both the Shia and the Sunni branches of Islam believe in the Mahdi, though they differ extensively on the attributes and status. Amongst 12er Shias, the Mahdi is believed to be the Muhammad al-Mahdi's son of the 11th Imam Hassan al-Aqsari, who is said to be in occultation. This is rejected. This is rejected by the Sunnis, who assert that Mahdi had not been born yet. There have been a vast amount of Mahdi claimants throughout the centuries. Okay, this is important to me because this idea of Jesus being the prophet, but there being a second coming part of Islam also shows there's a Gnostic connection to Islam. And that, even though it's a military-owned religion at this point, or was even then, so many of the figures who were forced to be members were already Gnostic or intellectual and mystical. So they're already thinking, okay, well, when's the second coming? And they're like, well, no, there's Muslims. They're like, oh, okay. Well, when's the second coming of Muslims coming? They're not over it. They still want a second coming. So the Mahdi does not disappear, even though it becomes really a third coming, because at that point you got it's the next coming. You got comings and goings all the time. In 12-verse Shi'ism, the largest Shia branch, the belief of the Messianic Imam is not merely a part of the creed, but a pivot. For the 12-verse Shia, the Mahdi was born but disappeared and would remain hidden from humanity until the Avatar, the Last Airbender scene where he defrosts and he comes out in the cartoon. He brings justice to the world. A doctrine known as the occultation. This Imam in the occultation is the 12th Imam, Muhammad's son of the 11th Imam, Hassan al-Aqsari. According to the 12ers, the Mahdi was born in Samarra in 868 and lived under his father's care until 874, when the latter was killed by the Abbasids. The Mahdi then went into occultation by the divine command and was hidden from the public view, for his life was in danger. Only a few of the elite amongst the Shia knew, and this is clearly the truth, okay? So look into 12-er Shiism. We're going to run out of time in a minute, and I'm going to save some of the stuff to go in deeper. But it looks like that's probably the closest thing. In Sunni Islam, the Mahdi doctrine is not only theologically important, remains a popular belief. Instead of the 6 canonical Sunni Hadith compilations, only 3 contain traditions of Mahdi. I mean, come on. This is definitely what they're saying. He's going to come with the end of times. Before his reappearance, the world will plunge into chaos, immortality, and ignorance will be commonplace. The Quran will be forgotten, religions will be abandoned, and godlessness will rule. Well, to be fair, Islam is not forgotten, and it's maybe 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion people or something like that. So Islam's growing. But also, is that Islam? Is today's Islam ancient Islam? So I'm not saying it's not. I'm just, I feel like everyone's trying their best, but let's be real. So there will be earthquakes, floods, wars, death, famine, and Sufyani will rise and lead people astray. The Mahdi will then reappear in Mecca with the sword of Ali in his hand. By the way, you saw the Japanese regalia, the sword of Japan. Between the corner of the Kaaba and the Station of Abraham, which is, by the way, that little thing you touch, which some people associate with the Moses Ark, but it's not. It's the Station of Abraham. The day of his reappearance will be the day of Ashura, 10th of Muharram, the day of the third Shia Imam Hussein, blah, 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 was slain. He will be a young man of a medium stature with a handsome face, black hair, and a beard. A voice from the heavens will call from the people of the world to his aid. The angels, the jinns, the humans will flock around him. He will go to the Kufa and he will then go to Kufa. Oh, Kubic capital. So 01 from the Animatrix. Here's Kufa again with you remember Kufa? It's the city with the QR code writing, which will become his capital, and send troops to kill the Sufyani in Damascus, Syria. Hussein and his slain partisans will then resurrect, as will other imams and Muhammad's. The episode of Jesus' return in the 12-er doctrine is similar to the Sunni belief, although in some 12-er traditions, it is the Mahdi who would kill the Dajjal. The Mahdi will convert other Muslims to Shi'ism, killing those who refuse to convert or banish them to the villages after imposing the jizya poll tax on them. Restore Islam to the earliest uncorrupted form, Islamicize the whole world, and establish global kingdom. His rule will be paradise on earth, which will last for 70 years. Some other traditions state 719 or 309 years before he dies. So, in Ishmaelism, and now we get there, in Ishmaelism, a distinct concept of the Mahdi developed with a select Ishmael imams representing the Mahdi or the Al-Qaim at various times. When the 6th Shia Imam Jafar al-Sadiq died, some of his followers held that he already was his already dead son Ishmael ibn Jafar to be the Imam, asserting that he was alive and would return as Mahdi. Another group accepted his death. Let's go ahead and save that. Another group accepted his death and acknowledged his son Muhammad ibn Ishmael as the imam instead. When he died, his followers too denied his death and believed that he and the last imam and the Mahdi. By the mid-9th century, Ishmael groups or different persuasions had coalesced into a unified movement centered in Salamia in the central of Syria, and a network of activists working to collect funds and amass weapons for the return of the Mahdi. Muhammad ibn Ismail would overthrow the Abbasids and establish his rightful caliphate, his righteous caliphate. The propaganda of the Mahdi return had a special appeal to peasants, Bedouins, and many of the latter, later to be 12 or Shias, who were in a state of confusion, Hayra, in the aftermath of the death of their 11th Imam Hassan al-Aqsari, and that resulted in many conversions. In 899, the leader of the movement, Abin Allah ibn al-Hussein, declared himself the Mahdi. This brought about a schism in the unified Ismaili communities, as not all adherents of the movement accepted the Mahdi's claims. Those in Iraq and Arabia, known as the Karmatians, after their leader Hamdan Karmat, let's save Karmat, still held that Muhammad ibn Ishmael was the awaited Mahdi and denounced the Salamiyya-based Mahdism. In the Karmati doctrine, the Mahdi was to abrogate the Islamic law, the Sharia, and bring forth a new message. In 931, the Karmati leader Abu Tahir al-Janabi declared a Persian prisoner named Abu Fadl al-Isfahani as the awaited Mahdi. The Mahdi went on to denounce Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad as liars, abolished Islam, and insulted the cult of fire. And instituted the cult of fire. Well, that's cool. So this guy tried to save Zoroastrianism. Abu Tahir had to dispose him as an impostor and had him executed. Oh, bummer. Meanwhile, in Syria, Abid Allah al-Mahdi's partisans took control of the central Syria in 903 before they were routed to the Abbasids. He now went to North Africa and founded the Fatimid Caliphate in Kairouan in 909. Messianic expectations associated with the Mahdi nevertheless did not materialize, contrary to the expectations of his propagandists and followers who expected him to do wonders. He attempted to downplay Messianism and asserted that the propaganda of Muhammad ibn Ishmael's return as the Mahdi had only been a ruse to avoid Abbasid persecution and protect the real Imam predecessors of his. The Mahdi was actually a collective title of the true Imams from the progeny of Jafar al-Sadiq. He later branded as the Mahdi his son, who had the name, as was expected of a Mahdi, Muhammad ibn Abid Allah. The Fatimids eventually dropped the millenarian rhetoric. Tayyibis, which include the Dawoodi Bohra, believe the second and current period of occultation Satar to begin after Imam Talib went into seclusion, and Imam from his progeny is very much presented as Mahdi on earth every time. The Tayyabi Ismailis, including the Dawoodi Bohra, believe that an Imam from the progeny of Al-Tayyib Abu Qasim is the current hidden Imam and Mahdi. Okay, so in other words, there is some sort of a secret line of a living, and that's like the Da Vinci Code about Islam. That's kind of interesting. In Zaydism, the concept of an imminent is different from the Ishmael and the 12 branches. Zaydi Imam is any respectable person from the descendant of Ali and Fatima who lays claims to political leadership and struggles for its acquisition. As such, Zaydi imamate doctrine imamate doctrine lacks eschatological characteristics, and there is no end-time redeemer in Zaydism. The title of Mahdi has been applied to several Zaydi Imams and as an honorific title over the centuries. Okay, well, I think we're like near the end of my hour video. So let me just, I'm going to go through the comments and check this out. And this is my plan. I'm going to try to do these daily, Monday through Friday, and get through them. Thank you, Travis McLung, for the super chat. I hope that answers some of your questions when I talked earlier about Phoenicia and Tyre. I could go deeper, and I'm going to go deeper into Tyre next time because I could pull up some more things than just Wikipedia. But I've just got so many things I want to go through that I just wanted to quickly go do like a quick jump off into Euclid. But I would say Euclid will tell you, if you start to read Euclid's books, you'll learn a lot about Tyre because that's where it comes from, and you can see kind of the logic of where they come from. So yeah, and I got to stay close to my microphone. I hope it wasn't too far from my microphone. Yeah, I should be doing an interview across the pond after Twitch with Mike. I think that's tomorrow. And then the tab you play with the eyeballs is super important. That your stream deck is supposed to be moving between the tabs. Okay, so Anthony Yost, get onto the Discord or the Element chat and hit me up, and let's talk about ways you think I should be using my stream deck properly, because it's just sitting next to me and I haven't really set it up yet. I had it on, I just haven't really used it. British history exposes a lot on the 1st century. The first Christian church can be found in South Wales, as well as a large number of biblical places, including the code and the place name of our ancestors. I really like his definition. It makes it clear. Hey, Mind Unveiled. Hey, Mind Unveiled's here. Well, there you go. Thanks. I like your polished videos. I really like his definition. It makes it clear that we are dealing with higher forces. Supposedly, he got his knowledge from Zoroaster. While you're here, Mind Unveiled, because you make a lot of videos and sometimes I forget to move fast enough to do that. It'd be good to do an interview or a chat sometime, of course. But let me just, because you're here, if you're going to make a video, I'd love it if you made a video on Christianity and Druze. The kids need this. They need to know about Druze. They need to know about different forms of Persian Gnosticism. So that's why I've been doing this series. I want to just kind of get everyone making videos on these subjects, and Mind Unveiled, you could easily do that. So thank you for what you do, and keep it up. Daryl Cole, ancestors left us. The whole biblical family and descendants' graves can all be traced and seen. It's the reason the northwest coast of Wales was made to resemble a pharaoh in headdress, and why Welsh translate the hieroglyphs so easily as a child. Yes, there's a lot of connections there, and also former Christianity, pre-Augustinian Christianity, because basically Egyptian mystics were brought from the Christians from Alexandria to Britain, and so there you go. All right, and now my alarm is going off, so that's that. Hey, what's up, Giant's there? Giant, we got the mics working, so hey, everybody, and thanks, Giant, for making this possible, and this is cool. Eugenie, thumbs up. Stellium, can't wait to have you do the video soon. Man, all my alarms are going off. Yeah, and yeah, go to the Discord, Xirtus.com, Andreas, www.andreas.me, and tartarinova.com. So, am I missing any other important questions I got to go through? I'm going to start having, if you super chat, I'll make sure I read them. But otherwise, it's like, if there's too many questions, it's going to be a while to make sure. But I'm still looking through. What do I think about the Baha'i faith? So Zachary Dops asked about the Baha'i faith. So if you watched a couple episodes ago, I think I did a chat with David Plate. It might not have made it to the public, so I might have to have David back on where we talk about this. But hold on, my dad's calling me too. Wait a second. Dad, I'm on the YouTube. Can I call you back in a minute? Yeah, sure. Cool. Call you back. That was very real. Forget. So Zachary Dops just asked about Baha'i. So David Plate and I were talking about this. The UN, the Great Invocation of the UN, and their association with Baha'i. We have some friends. David has some friends who work there. He asked them, like, "Oh, you work in the UN building in San Francisco? Pretty weird. Have you ever noticed those, Baha'i people?" And they're kind of weird. And he's like, "Funny, you should mention that. They come in these weird robes all the time, and we're supposed to like not ask them about it or not talk to them, just kind of like let them do their thing. And they come in and they're allowed to, not just allowed, they're like the Jedi. They're supposed to interact with the UN, if there's like two tribes or two different countries, the Baha'i will be the intermediary, like Jedi, to kind of help interact with these groups, like a religious ambassador that the Jesuits used to fill the role of. So that's kind of weird. I have an earlier video on Phoebe Hearst, and I mentioned this a few times. She was the one who brought Baha'i to the West from Bobby, and you can connect the Hearst fortune to Baha'i, and the fact that they went into Persia and his obsession with Persia and trying to get all these Persian relics at his mansion. I would say the Baha'i are an important thing, an interesting thing. I wouldn't go as far as to say they're good or evil or anything like that. Like, I know you said your grandfather was a member of them, and I think it's not an old topic necessarily. It's just an important thing to know that they do incorporate all religions into theirs. They worship 8. They have a lot of connection to the lotus. I tend to not, like, I'm not a Baha'i guy, and some of the things is, I know that it's not really necessarily wrong of them to be against certain things, but they're, a lot of these modern neoliberals taught me to be concerned with Baha'i because they secretly have a lot of hyper-conservative values and etc. But I would say that in general, they pretend like you're already a member of them, and so you can't help but enjoy it. So they're following that Islamic tradition of, everything's already part of Baha'i. You just don't realize it yet. You're already playing the game, so I don't know. I mean, but I find that to be kind of strange. The Bible is a very pretty good drama. Dops says it's a good drama. I agree with that. The Bible is very strange because you have all these stories where sin happens, people make mistakes, and there are consequences for generations. And that's a very interesting way to do a book, let alone a religious book. Most religious books are like, Rama was perfect and drank the perfect alcohol or milk, or didn't do this, did do that, whatever he was supposed to do. They don't do that. In the Bible, it's like, you made a mistake, he made a mistake, this guy, God chose him, and then that guy killed his best friend. It's pretty cool. Much more recent, Memory Man. I missed some of these retracted messages, probably for the best. None of this spooky blasphemy will ever shake my faith in the Mas Tequila. Nice job, Smith. 6079 Smith. Well, okay. I think that was good. Hit me up. Let's do something soon. TartaryNova.com. I am at Andreas.me. Email me. Let's set something up. If you guys want to do like a talk sometime, I know I just saw mine unveiled, so we should get in touch. It seems like a good thing to do. All right, everybody, take care. Love you very much.